Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready for the event.
American Physiological Society, this is Mission Control. Houston, please call Station for a voice check.
Station, this is the American Physiological Society. How do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. How do you hear me?
Loud and clear. Okay, we're ready. So first of all, Jessica, thanks for taking the time to speak to us today for the American Physiological Society. This is for an interview that's going to take place and be published in the Physiologist Magazine. And so I think that the first thing I'd like to ask you is a little bit different to what we intended to ask a few weeks ago. And that's because of the crisis that we're facing on the Earth right now. And so a lot of people are facing a problem of isolation due to social distancing. And I'm wondering if your experience on the space station and also your training has helped you, can help you to give us a few tips on how to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is something that we have thought a bit about up here. It is very strange and a bit surreal for us to be seeing it all unfold when we've been up here for the entire duration of what's going on down on the ground. And it seems that we will be completely going back to a different planet. But I think there are a lot of things that people can do to make things a little bit easier on them. And some of the things that we do up here is to make sure that we try to stick to our routine. We make sure that we stick to our exercise regime to stay fit and healthy. And exercise, as we know, is important not only for our physical fitness, but also for our mental well-being. And that's something that we emphasize a lot up here. We maintain regular contact with people back home. I know I've seen lots of accounts of friends and family maintaining contact with Zoom and other web-based programs and to talk and stay together, stay in tune, have virtual happy hours, that kind of thing with people. And that's something that we do regularly for our psychological support on the space station as well. We talk weekly to our family and friends and loved ones with video conferences. So I think all of those kinds of things, just to make sure that you're still sticking to your routine, maintaining your own psychological well-being, those are some things that can really help out. And I think that they're coming in handy for people on the ground as well as astronauts up here on the space station.
Thanks. I was just getting a bit of an echo through my phone, so I've just turned my phone off. All right, so now, could you tell us a little bit about what you're actually doing on the space station and what's your role on the space station?
Yeah, one of the nice things about our roles on the space station now is that all astronauts and cosmonauts are really created equal. It's a little bit different than things were back in the shuttle program, where people would specialize a little bit more in their roles. The commander and the pilot that would, really focus on being able to land the space shuttle. Others more focused on science or spacewalks. But now with the space station, since we have these long duration missions, typically about 6 months, we all have to be able to do everything. So yes, of course, doing scientific experiments is one of my favorite things up here, but just because I have a background as a scientist doesn't mean that's all I do up here. I have to also do maintenance on the space station. We have to do regular maintenance and then also repair things when they break. The space station is about 20 years old now, so there are lots of repairs that are needed throughout. We can't call a plumber or an electrician when we need something fixed, so we have to be able to do all that ourselves. We go for spacewalks sometimes when we need to do any upgrades or repairs on the outside of the space station. I was fortunate enough to do 3 of those during my mission. We fly the robotic arm to support spacewalks as well as for other activities on the outside of the space station. So the really nice thing about the job is that it's a little bit of everything, and it's one of my favorite things about being an astronaut, both here in space and on the ground. You're not just doing exactly the same thing every day. Everything that we do is very active. It involves not only mental stimulation but also physical stimulation, and those are the things that really keep me going. So that's a bit what we're doing up here. When we wake up every day, we look at our schedule, and our day is a mix of all of those different activities. So you might be doing some experiments, then you might be doing some maintenance tasks. Right now, we're doing a lot of cargo operations because we're getting ready to send the SpaceX Dragon capsule, a cargo vehicle that was loaded with science. We're getting ready to send that back, and that will splash down back on Earth, and with it, it will be bringing lots of scientific samples as well as some other hardware to return to the ground.
Do you actually get to choose which experiments go up on the space station, or is that something that you deal with once you know what's going up there?
Yeah, we don't get to choose much of anything in our role as astronauts. It is a lot different from being in academia, where we have a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility in our schedules and in our roles and in what we do. As astronauts, we have all of everything that we do up here on the space station is set out by, first of all, the administration and the NASA management, but then secondly, all of the ground team and all of the program objectives on the ground. So each space station expedition, right now it's Expedition 62, has a set of experiments, a set of hardware tasks, a set of things that have already been established of what needs to get accomplished on the space station in that given time period. On the research front, it's just the same, a call for proposals, just like you would have through NIH or NSF. NASA sends out that call for proposals, and then the science that's selected for that mission and then ends up getting manifested on that mission is what we end up carrying out. So we, as individual astronauts on board, don't really have any say in that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I'm working at Mass General Hospital. You're obviously very familiar with the Mass General, having been there for a while. And I'm wondering if that experience as a physiologist prepared you for what you do. That's a little bit related to the previous question, but you've been a physiologist for many, many years, and I wonder if that's prepared you for your role on the space station and to be an astronaut. Was it helpful? How did that prepare you?
Yes, absolutely. It was very helpful. Nowadays, astronauts come from a very diverse background. So there are other scientists. There are also, a lot of engineers. Really, a majority have an engineering background. We have pilots. We have physicians. We have a real mix of people. And I think that brings a much stronger team when you have people from various backgrounds, various ways of thinking. I think when it comes to solving a problem and accomplishing a mission, you have a lot more heads in the game, a lot more different ways of thinking, and you will be a lot more successful and then also a lot happier doing so. I think for me as a scientist, critical thinking, of course, and all of those skills that I learned using the scientific method and establishing my career as a scientist come in on everything that we do up here. I think the other big one for me was flexibility and adaptability, especially in the types of experiments that I was conducting as a scientist. They were ones that required a lot of logistical support, working with what I call charismatic megafauna, large animals like emperor penguins, elephant seals, bar-headed geese, doing that in remote environments like the Antarctic. It involves a lot more than just a rigorous experimental protocol. It also involves a lot of hard work. Sometimes in the Antarctic, you spend a day just shoveling snow outside instead of doing science, depending on the weather conditions. And so I think working in those kind of isolated environments, ones that you needed to have a lot of resilience and flexibility and adaptability, really helped me prepare for what life up here is like.
So that's actually a good segue into the next kind of fun question. And that you just mentioned you've dealt with a lot of I wouldn't call them strange creatures, but certainly creatures that have been in extreme environments in your time as a physiologist. And so I'm just wondering if any of them might be better suited to space travel than we are. Do they have any physiological traits that would help them in the environment in which you find yourself now? Can we learn anything from them?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the animals that I studied were real extremophiles. They were really the extremes of the extreme, even in terms of the most elite divers in their classes and high altitude animals. And so these were animals that are exceptional in their capability, even in the animal world. And so I think that those would be great examples of animals that might be able to do quite well up here, because they're already extremophiles. They're already well suited to these extreme environments. And of course, though, space is the ultimate of extreme environments, and not humans, but none of those animals would also really be able to survive freely in the vacuum of space, since we've all evolved on the planet Earth. But I guess I would have to, in a fun way, I guess I'd have to pick the emperor penguin. And I think that's just one of the things in terms of navigating up here. You can see how agile emperor penguins are when they're diving beneath the surface. And I think that they would be able to adapt to moving around in microgravity quite well. With their wings, that are really still quite rigid, they could probably use those to push themselves off a little bit and maneuver from one to the next. So I think that would be my pick of those three animals.
That's cool. One of my grandsons asked me to ask you, if you brought your geese up into the space station and you had enough room, could they fly?
That would be great. I would love to bring my geese up, and a lot of people ask that, and I kind of envisioned the geese with their own little helmet up here. But I don't think that they wouldn't really be able to fly without being able to have that resistance, right? They have to move through air, and you have the drag in order to push yourself through the air, and how in basically in terms of how the flight dynamics work. So up here in space, if I just go motionless like this, swimming or doing what you would do if you were a bird in air or if you were underwater, that doesn't really get you anywhere in space. So it might be quite difficult for them to fly, but perhaps they could figure another way of maneuvering about.
A little messy as well, but so as you know, I think in APS we have a number of space physiologists, people who study the physiology in space. I'm wondering what the discipline can contribute to space exploration. What do you think? Obviously, it's important we can survive and thrive in space, and how does the fact that we're studying physiology contribute to that mission, if you like?
Well, I would say that physiology is one of the most important disciplines, especially, of course, if we're talking about human space exploration. Everything that we do up here, we need to understand the effect of the spaceflight environment and microgravity and what that has on the human body. And we have decades of research now, and we do have a lot of very impressive data. We do understand a lot more than we did at the beginning, but we still need to know more. There still are some pretty big unanswered questions, particularly those dealing with radiation. But if we want to continue having a presence in space, and if we want to make that next step, NASA right now has the Artemis program that's planning on sending astronauts back to the moon and then eventually onto Mars. If we want to make those much longer duration missions, we need to know everything we can about how the spaceflight environment will affect us as astronauts. First of all, to get us to our destination safely, we need to be able to work effectively once we get all the way to Mars, but also to make sure that we bring the astronauts home safely. So I think that's the biggest objective for human spaceflight. We need to make sure that we can do that. The other big arena, I think, that is very impressive and has a lot of contributions already is looking at the applications that the research that we do up here can also have for life back on Earth. And there are countless examples, some on the terms of biotechnology, looking at protein crystal growth, and some of the pharmaceutical developments that have come from research up here. Since you can grow bigger and more pure protein crystals in space, that has actually led to some testing for some new drugs, for example, for Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. For the various states, when we study things about how spaceflight and microgravity affect the human body, two of the biggest ones are bone loss and muscle atrophy. And those parallels and the research we do up here have a lot of parallels to disease states like osteoporosis. And basically, what we know about spaceflight from this decades of research is that it seems to be sort of an accelerated form of aging, which isn't really something that I like to think about too much, but it really does seem to be happening. So all of the systems, and when we see and study the effects on what is happening to us up here, we can then apply those to disease states back home too. And I have several examples of some of the research that we're doing up here right now, if you want to hear more about those.
Absolutely. Just go ahead and tell us one or two of the things that are going on right now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So actually, right now, I'm involved in several physiological experiments where I am the subject. One of them is called vascular echo, and this is a very international team of scientists. I'm sure some of them are APS members, and it's a pretty interesting study since they're building upon other data sets of experiments that they've already done, and they've actually seen some pretty impressive effects. And they've shown that even in about a 6-month mission, if you look at the carotid artery, for example, the walls of the arteries are actually getting thicker and stiffer during space flight, sort of similar to the aging process, but in a very much accelerated fashion. So in a 6-month mission, some of these changes are equivalent to about 20 to 30 years of aging. So it's very, very significant in terms of these effects. Now, the question at the mechanism behind that and whether or not it lasts when we come back down to Earth is also, something that we need to know more about. So I spent the last couple days doing that experiment. I was using an ultrasound and echo in order to image various blood vessels. Today, I'm taking my blood pressure every hour, and there are some blood samples associated with that to try to look at that problem from many different many different sides. There's another experiment right now that we are conducting called EHT, engineered heart tissue. And this isn't one that I'm a subject on. I'm actually doing that in this glove box that's just located right over here. But this is a really cool technology. They are these 3D tissue engineered heart muscles. So they're cardiomyocytes that were derived from stem cells, and they actually spontaneously contract just like cardiomyocytes would. So we're looking up here at contractility. We know there are some differences, some effects into the cardiovascular system in spaceflight, but we don't have a lot of data looking at the tissue level. So in that experiment, they're actually looking at the force generated in microgravity, comparing that to the control groups back down on Earth, and then we're fixing those muscles at various time points, and those will be analyzed back on Earth for gene expression, try to understand, if what was up or down regulated here in the spaceflight environment, and then also to look at the morphology. We just completed an experiment called osteomics, which was looking now this time at bone cells, of course, and trying to understand the molecular mechanism behind what is happening. As I'm sure you know, as soon as we come up here, our bones will start leaching calcium, and we'll have a very significant loss in bone density and also in bone quality. We are able to counteract a lot of that with the very impressive exercise equipment that we have up here now, but we're still trying to understand more. So those are just a few examples. My crewmate Drew Morgan was a subject for the fluid shifts experiment. That was a very cool, comprehensive physiological study that was trying to understand more about how the upward fluid shift that we experience in microgravity, any effect that it might have on some recent results, which we've seen on a lot of astronauts coming back. We have some vision deficits and some actually morphological changes to the eye and even to the retinal layer itself, some folds in the choroid layer, and some swelling, some edema in the optic disc, those kind of things. And luckily, so far, none of those changes have led to long-term or any significant problems post-flight or vision changes, but we really need to understand the mechanism behind that to make sure that we can maintain, again, the long-term health of astronauts. So lots of pretty cool, exciting physiological research, and that fluid shifts experiment especially, we were using ultrasound, we were using a lower body negative pressure machine in the Russian segment so that we could actually return blood flow temporarily to take measurements during that. We were doing tonometry so that we were looking at pressure in the eye as well. So really multifaceted approach to looking at all these aspects of these fluid shifts.
That's really a fascinating series of experiments, and I'm glad to see that physiology is at the base of many of them, of course. So that being the case, what problems do you expect to have when you get back to Earth? What have you been prepared to undergo and to experience when you get back to Earth with your own physiology?
Well, it is pretty remarkable, and that's one of the most fascinating things, I think, for me being up here is how the plasticity in the human brain in terms of us adapting to or acclimating to life up here and how quickly that can take place. I was quite fortunate. I didn't suffer from any of the space motion sickness at the beginning of the mission. That does happen to some people, but I think that going back to gravity is going to feel a lot worse. Once you're up here, and we exercise every day for 2.5 hours. We're lifting weights and we're doing cardiovascular exercise. So we're actually increasing our muscle mass. I've definitely increased my muscle mass, and we seem to be in pretty good shape. But there's this interesting phenomenon when you come back down where you just feel pretty poorly for a while. And even though you've maintained your health, you've been running and cycling and lifting all these weights, you actually become quite weary and quite tired even from just walking, because suddenly you have this force of gravity weighing down on you again, and what that is doing, I think, specifically to your cardiovascular system. Astronauts will go from running many miles at a very fast pace up here on our treadmill, and then barely being able to run and even just getting quite tired even walking around. And that does return to normal, of course, and we have a good rehab program to get through that initial period, but it is quite interesting to see those changes. I think the big one right now, one of the bigger problems for NASA is getting the answers behind these problems with the eye, and that's actually a syndrome that has now been called SANS, Spaceflight Associated Neurovestibular Syndrome, Spaceflight Associated Neuroocular Syndrome. And so it's a suite of different effects that, again, some of those that I described to you with these changes to the eye, and that's something that we're trying to really get behind at NASA. But I think, this general feeling of coming back, I'm not really looking forward to it. It's quite interesting how accustomed to floating, you become quite quickly. It just seems normal now. Even walking around seems quite foreign to me. So we'll see how it goes.
So we're coming to the end. So do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to give to members of the APS before we leave? We've got about a minute left, I think. So any final thoughts on life on the space station that you'd like to tell us, to share with us?
Yeah, I think maybe just briefly a little bit more about that plasticity. It was really interesting to observe in the brain. If I'm oriented like this and I'm trying to think of a 1G context where there's always a down, and through the entire evolution of our species and through, of course, a much smaller scale our lives, we're always accustomed to that and interpreting everything that way with that gravitational vector. And so if I was suddenly have to go up here to work on something up here on, what you would think of as the ceiling. In the beginning, those first few weeks, the plasticity of the brain was just, you could feel the brain being overloaded with all of these different spatial cues, and my brain would kind of do this flip-flopping thing where suddenly now I would think this was down, and then you could easily become quite confused when you shifted back down to another position. But within a couple weeks, actually, that went away, and it was so interesting to see that plasticity of the human brain and how you just adapted, and I think, toward using different cues for spatial orientation, like using the location of physical objects. And so that I was thinking as a physiologist, how cool if we had EEG or some kind of MRI image of what the brain was what was happening to the brain in those initial periods. After this whole evolution of a species as humans, suddenly you're removing this gravitational vector, and what must be going on in the brain, I think would really be phenomenal to see. Lastly, I would really like to say thank you to you and everybody at MGH. I know that you, as well as countless others in the medical field, are doing so much for everybody on the ground right now, and it's something our hearts really go out to you. We are up here still going through our normal day, and it feels quite surreal to see everything unfolding on the ground, but we know there are so many efforts that people like you and like MGH are going to extraordinary measures. So I would like to pass along my greetings and my support to everybody down there. We may be the only 3 humans that are currently unaffected by this, though we will be returning to Earth in just a few weeks, so we'll be arriving right in the middle of it all, and we are certainly thinking of everybody on the ground.
Well, thank you very much, Jessica. That was wonderful, and hopefully we can stay in touch when you get back on the ground and see how you're doing in the future. Okay, bye-bye.
That would be great. It was wonderful talking to you today. Goodbye. Thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station.
Thank you to all the participants from the American Physiological Society. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.